Hello and welcome to this preview of Background Magic version 3. Yes folks, it's really coming and it won't be much longer. I lost my original programmer, that's why it's taken so long to come out with a new version, but I've got a new programmer now and he's excellent and we're looking forward to getting this out there for you. Let's take a look at some of the differences. In the old version, if you recall, you had to drag and drop your image files up there for the ones you wanted to blend. Now you don't have to do that. Click the number 1 to send an image up to window 1. Click the number 2 to send an image up to window 2. So there's less monkeying around. I think that's a lot easier. Over here you'll see a star and an eye. That's something new also. The stars is for your favorites. As you can see, I have no favorites. So let's just check a couple here. You'll see it turns gold down there. That indicates that you've got that selected as a favorite. Then if you just want to see your favorites, that's all you'll see. In the eye, nothing happens. I don't have anything selected there either. The eye, what that does is hide things. Suppose you think, well, I'll never want to use that image, so you can check that. It grays it out. We'll check that one and it'll gray it out. You can see the eye went from having a gold rim to being gray. Now if you select that, those two images disappear and you'd probably want to leave these so they're disappeared. You can always click it again and bring them back, but that way you can just hide images that you don't want to see most of the time and you still have your favorites. Up here you have all the controls before plus some new ones. Right now you can see they're not working. That's because there's no window selected. If you select a window, then you'll see a dark border around it and you'll see the text gets bold, and you can apply effects to any one of these windows. So once you do that, then you can change the brightness, color, contrast. That's new, and saturation is new, and gamma is new. And they'll all do different things and give you different looks. And over here on the special effects tab, you can emboss it. Click it again to remove the effect. Erode, kind of choose up the sharp edges a little bit. Sharpen does about the same thing as emboss, only not as strongly. And you can still preview like you could before. But something we've added is that you can also go full screen. You couldn't do that before, and you can see that tiles actually tile within these windows too, so you wouldn't actually need the preview button if you didn't want to use it. You can see them tile here, but I'll work with it smaller so it's not as far in between mouse clicks. And if you have several effects checked, instead of unchecking them all, you can just hit the reset button. Resets everything. The pattern is pretty neat. It makes nifty little patterns. Some are bolder than others, and some you can hardly tell it does anything. Click the emboss and you can give it a little more depth, or click the sharpen and give it a little less depth but more than it had. And that's about it for this. Of course, you still have your blend percentage down there where you can blend. Your blend can favor one window more than the other. So you can really come up with millions of different looks just by adjusting colors and applying effects and with the different tiles you blend. And there's our, if I didn't say it already, I think we're sending out 200 image tiles with it, so that's twice as many as before. And there's textures and patterns and all kinds of stuff. You might look at some of this and say, well, what good would that be as a background? Some of these bolder patterns like this, for example. Yeah, if you tried to put text on it, that wouldn't be very good, but be surprised at some of the neat looks you can come up with. You can make some adjustments there, and then if you picture this as a blog background or a web page background where you've got your main content sitting on top of it on a solid color, and this is just a pattern around the edges, it makes a pretty nifty pattern, pretty nifty background. And of course there are all kinds of looks you can come up with there too, from subtle looks to really bold looks. And that'll be about it for this. Let's take a look at border magic next and see some of the differences there. And for those who aren't familiar with background magic, it's really 3 programs in one. You can make image tiles like you see here, that tile like that. You can make left border style backgrounds, and you can make matching buttons. So let's take a look at border magic next. And this also goes full screen like the main program does, but we'll work with it smaller here. And first off, you set the border width by using this slider here, and it moves in pretty good chunks. So what you want to do is get it close to where you want, and then you can adjust it 1 pixel at a time by clicking in the track, or you can click and hold and adjust it at a fairly controllable scrolling rate. Next is the shadow. You can set a shadow by sliding that over, and it goes pretty wide, wider than what looks good actually, but to each their own. You can adjust the opacity, which means how dark the shadow is. And over here where it's white right now, where you'd have your main content on a border background, you can choose any color you want from the image by using the eyedropper tool and clicking in there somewhere, or you can select any of 16 million plus colors. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, not so good. Anyway, you can also use this image tile over here. If you check the use image tile and you don't see anything until you start moving the slider over, that adjusts the opacity, which the further you go, the darker it gets, to where you got it clear over there. You can turn the shadow off and you can see it just matches right in with the border. But you'd usually want to use that down here somewhere where it's just a lightened version of it. And whatever color you selected will influence the hue of the border over here, the pattern, the tile. So if you go up and if you choose white, which is the default color, you can see it's kind of grayed out over there, which makes it useful for putting text on top of it. Black gives you another look. And any color you choose will have its influence on it, so it gives you lots of choices and lots of options there. And that's about it for border magic. So next we'll take a look at button magic. And to open button magic, you click the button icon, and you can adjust the height of the button there. And if you notice underneath your cursor, you'll see how tall it is. Like right there is 35 pixels. As long as you're holding down the mouse key on the button, it'll tell you the size. And adjust the width up here. And once you get the size about where you want it, you can always come back and adjust it later. Then you click adjust bevel. So you slide that over to make a bevel, and you can see it starts off really harsh with just black and white. Then you adjust the shading downward to get it like you want, and you got a nice little beveled button there. When you have the look you want, go to adjust text, type your text into the window up here. Let's say we're making a contact button. Let's turn the shadow off for a second here. Now this you can adjust top, center, and bottom. It's center by default, which is where most people would want it. You can adjust the font size, and you can change the font if you want to. We'll just leave it where it's at for demonstration purposes. Now let's take a look at the shadow. Down here is where it usually would be. This is how far it offsets, and you can see it going away as I move the slider. One thing, if you have your text or your bevel too big, it'll start getting cut off down at the bottom edge there. That's so that your text doesn't actually spill over onto the bevel, which would look kind of silly. So you can see how that shadow's getting cut off as I move it down. So you might want to go back and adjust your bevel size or adjust the button size if you find that's the case. But for now, let's play with this. We'll move the shadow blur over, and that's how much blur there is. And you can adjust the shadow color. You can adjust the text color. Let's make that white on there, and you can see the shadow a little better that way. You can see if you adjust that, it gives it a different look. And here's something I like the looks of. Go back to black text and make the shadow white. Yeah, I know shadows aren't white, but it kind of makes it looks like it's etched in there or carved into the button. If you adjust that a little bit, you can give it different depth, and sometimes white might be a little too harsh. So you go up and just choose a little shade of gray, a light gray. Doesn't look quite so harsh. You can adjust that and give it a more etched look. I think that looks pretty nifty. And once you do that, you save that button. Click the icon there to save it. Have a list of all the buttons you want to make. Type a new word, save it. Type a new word, save it. And in a matter of minutes, once you adjust your button look like you want, then you can make all the different buttons you need for your website in just a couple of minutes, just by typing in a new word, and all those effects will be applied. And then I'd also recommend saving a blank button you can add text to later. Right now Magic won't import the button, but it will in a future version. My programmer doesn't know that yet because I just had that idea. But that's button magic, and that's border magic, and that's background magic. And I hope you like the preview because it's coming soon. And I want to see everybody out there making their own graphics and making very unique websites. Talk to you later.